Queensland women's representative number 124 is Meg Ward. Meg was born in Gosford, New South Wales and moved to Queensland at the age of 2. A 3-time NRLW Premiership winner with the Brisbane Broncos, Meg made her debut for Queensland in 2018. Meg was a member of the Australian side that won the 2017 Women's World Cup, scoring 3 tries in the tournament. In 2024, Meg was named the BMD Premiership Coach of the Year in her first season at the helm of the North Devils. Well, Meg Ward, thanks for your time. What does it mean to you to be a FOG, considered a FOG for Queensland?
It's crazy. It's so special. Growing up, I think you watch, everyone gets so excited for Origin period as soon as it's coming up. So to think that I'm now a part of that and a part of that history, especially for Queensland, that's something that's very special.
So let's go back to the start. Born in New South Wales, but moved here as a very, very young girl into one of the more rural parts of Brisbane. What was your early years like growing up in basically the bush of Brisbane?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was the best childhood I think I ever could have asked for. It was the real lifestyle of like, Mum and Dad would be like, go outside and just run and play till the sun goes down. And then when it comes down, we'll yell out and we'll have dinner ready. It was that kind of lifestyle. And it was just constantly outdoors, riding your bike, kicking the footy. I remember being in the front yard. I used to put my footy pants on and my jersey and walk out with my footy and just picture, all right, I'm walking out in the stadium. And I'd be running along doing chip kicks and like, to no one. I'm just kicking to myself, scoring tries, going, and Darren Lockyer scores, pretending to be Darren Lockyer. He was my idol. So, yeah, it was the best childhood. I was very lucky.
So when did that dream sort of start to, become a reality, and the fact that you realised that you could play football as you got older? When did that first game of footy happen for you?
It actually happened extremely late. So for me, it's happened when I was in Tyndall. So I joined the Air Force, posted to Tyndall. I'd played soccer my whole life, had a little dabble in rugby union just before I joined the Defence Force, and then got posted to Tyndall, and that was sort of where I found rugby league, just going to a random tryouts. I actually went into town to trial for the women's side, and they said, the women's side trialled 2 weeks ago, you've actually missed it. And they said, this is the under 13s, under 15s, but if you want to have a run around, I know the coach. And if I think you look all right, like I'll let the coach know. So
how old were you then?
I would have been 22.
So chances are you would have looked all right playing against the 15s and 13s.
I smashed them. I absolutely thought this is it, this is my moment. And I just dominated a couple of 13-year-olds and then got the call up to the women's side. So that was insane. I wasn't really expecting that, but it gave me something to do. I was missing sport a lot when I posted to Tyndall, so I was really excited. And I grew up watching rugby league out at Sanford. I remember Friday, Saturday, Sunday was down at the Stags with Dad till all hours of the night. Sometimes you'd fall asleep under the table while Dad was still chatting to all his mates and having a few drinks, doing whatever they did. And then Dad would be, all right, home time. All the kids would wake up from all different areas around the club and head home. But it was just such a good childhood. We grew up watching rugby league, loving rugby league. It was such a rugby league little community. I just never thought that women or girls could play. Some of the parents had suggested that, have you thought about giving Megsy a run just with the kids? And Dad was always like, no, there's nothing there for her. She plays football, which I did, and I loved it. Whenever I went and run around with the kids at the Stags, they all said, Megsy's got a bit in her, like she could be all right. But there was never a pathway or opportunity, so I just stuck out with soccer. And it wasn't until I was 22, 24 that I realised I watched a Gillaroos game on TV and thought, hey, that looks pretty cool. And that was when I found rugby league.
So you never felt as you were growing up that you wanted to find somewhere to play. It never entered your head that you'd be able to play, which I suppose in some respects made it a little bit easier, not knowing you were missing something in that respect.
Yeah, definitely. I never knew there was an opportunity. Like I said, being down at the Stags, all I watched was men play. Men play, then the boys played. Teenagers was all boys. There was never any girls in the picture. So I just never thought that it was ever an option. Whereas in soccer, I'd watch so many women play, and then there was girls teams that you could go watch. It wasn't until I got older that I realised there actually was women's rugby league and girls that played.
So as a 22-year-old dominating the under-15s, what was it like when you played someone your own age height and weight?
It was a bit of a shock initially. They hit me a lot harder than what the under-13s and under-15s did. But I loved it. For some reason, I thrived on the contact. Playing football, growing up, they always told me I was too rough. I always got yellow cards, red cards. I was a defender, and I'd always go in real hard with my shoulder, and I never held back. So that's why Dad always thought I'd be a good footy player. So when I gave it a go, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The contact didn't faze me.
Was that a Tyndall? Did you make that team?
Yeah, it was in Darwin. Yeah, so I played for Darwin. I played for the NT, sorry. I made the NT Titans side, and we went down to Adelaide and played in a competition down there where we versed, it wasn't Queensland, New South Wales, but it was, there was Perth, not Perth, there was South Australia, Western Australia, I can't remember all the teams to be honest, but it was like a little Australian competition for the women at the time. And it was at that competition, I just went out, had fun, no idea what I was doing. I was just winging it, playing what I'd kind of watched growing up, like off the hand kind of footy, throwing offloads and chip kicks and chasing, and just had the most fun of the tournament. And was fortunate enough, Brad Donald was there, the Jillaroos coach at the time, and he sort of picked me out at the end of the competition. I got player of the tournament and got asked to go along to a Jillaroos camp. I think it was a week or 2 weeks later. So it just happened so quick for me. It went from nothing, just a bit of muck around footy with some 13, 15-year-olds to making the NT team. Didn't really know what that was. Went down, played in Adelaide. Again, didn't know that anything could come from that. I thought that was it. So then when I met Brad, it was a bit like, far out, this is pretty cool. Like, this is the Australian coach, that's crazy. And then going into the camp and seeing these athletes that I'd never seen, met or heard of, and just seeing how amazing they were and how strong they were, it was like, far out, I could actually do something here. And then, I just sort of enjoyed the camp. And then a few weeks later, Brad called me and said that I'd been picked in the PM side to go over to PNG. So I went over to PNG, played in that. Mum and Dad came over to that. That was epic, over in PNG. And then came back and they're announcing the World Cup team for 2017. I didn't think that I'd make it. My first year in footy, only having played that one competition and then the PM's game, I wasn't expecting to make it. There was girls that had been playing for years. And then, Brad called me and said, you've been selected in the squad. And that's where it all sort of took off.
So that tournament and Brad Donald being there, is it fair to say that that was a life-changing moment? Life-changing.
Incredibly life-changing. If I look back to before that, if I was to go a bit deeper, I would even say potentially even saved my life. I was in a really hard spot, being in Tyndall, not having sport, being posted away from family. There was so much more to it. So I needed something to do. I needed to find a passion again, and just going along and playing footy saved my life and gave me a new passion and a new love that I now live for.
Take us back to that 2017 World Cup, and coming from nowhere, as you said, with girls that you didn't have a clue who they were.
Yep.
How easy was it for you to rise to that level, or did it just come naturally for you?
Oh, I think it was tough. It was so scary. I remember being so anxious before every game. But it was just so cool to be surrounded by so many amazing people that, like Steffi Hancock being one that would just say, Meg, just go out there and have fun. Don't overthink the game. I know you're wearing the green and gold, but just have fun. And that, I'll never forget that. And that's what I did. I just went out and enjoyed myself and had a lot of fun doing it.
And then, of course, you're back home and things changed after that. Take us through that whirlwind time. So you're in Darwin, you then go to this competition in Adelaide, you're playing in the World Cup, and then you're playing in a women's NRL competition. It must have just been, hang on, what's going on here?
It happened so fast. I did it all backwards. So I played for Australia 2017. 2018, they did the first ever women's State of Origin. I'm having a memory blank now what it was called before. That was called like the State Championship or
Interstate Challenge or something.
Interstate Challenge. I think that rings a bell. So it was the first ever year. It was called the Women's State of Origin, and I was very fortunate to make that team. We went down that first Origin. It was 16-10. We went down to New South Wales, down in Sydney. So that it sucked losing, but that moment of being told that you're getting a phone call saying you're in the women's State of Origin squad, you're going to wear a Queensland jersey, was like, I'll never forget it. It was the craziest moment. I remember running out on the field, the fireworks going off, the crowd going insane. I think at the time, which was massive, we might have got 10 or 12,000 in a crowd, which at the time was like unheard of. And it was a huge moment. So yeah, just arm in arm with the girls singing the anthem in the Origin jerseys, what you grow up watching. And I still get goosebumps thinking about that moment running out with the girls. Even though we lost, it was just something I'll never forget.
It's interesting hearing you talk about, your early days of playing footy and just having fun and throwing the ball around and basically live footy. Yep. Then you're playing for your country and you get a little bit anxious and Steph Hancock tells you just enjoy it.
Yep.
What was your mindset then before Origin? Was it anxiety or was it fun or a mixture of both?
Definitely a mixture of both. I don't think there was ever a game I played for any team, even when I then made Brisbane Broncos, where I wasn't anxious or I think you call it anxious or you call it sort of stress and nerves. But how I try to look at it now is usually if you're nervous and you're stressed and anxious, it's because you care and you want to do good and you want to be successful. It's why we all do it. So at the time I was very anxious, but I look back, it's just because I cared so much and I was so excited to be out there. And so now I try and turn that around for players now that I'm a coach and say, hey, if you're anxious and nervous, it's a good thing. It's because you care. Just go out there and do what you do. So,
what were your expectations around 27, 18, 19 for the women's game? What was it like being in that environment where it's gone from being, and we've had, Tani Norris and Karen Murphy and Steph sitting where you're sitting talking about staying at the West End Backpackers and having to wear burley jumpers representing Queensland.
Yep.
You're coming out of that. You're arriving at a time when things are changing. What was it like?
It was a bit of a weird dynamic at the time because the women were really fighting for so much at that time and they'd already fought for so long. And then this was kind of the turning point, the first ever State of Origin, the first ever NRLW. It was a real turning point and I sort of came in right at the start of when it all changed. So I never experienced what they experienced. I'll definitely say I was very fortunate. I sort of started right in the period when it took off. But being with those girls, I learnt how grateful I was for all that we had. Hearing some of their stories that you were just talking about and even hearing stories of the raffle fundraisers and selling cars and all these things just to be able to represent Australia or Queensland made me very grateful for being there. But being a part of that fight and seeing where the women's game is now, it's so cool to have been involved in that and to see what those girls... I know there were some really key people in there that were really fought hard for where the game is now, and to see them do that and to see the success that it has now, I think shows how incredible those women are that fought for so long.
It's really, realistically, you're talking 2017 World Cup. It's less than a decade ago as we sit here talking now. The game has come on so far. How much you've played, you're now coaching, as you said. How much development has there been inside the last 10 years?
Oh, it's massive. Just seeing the athletes coming through. I think the biggest thing is the pathways now that the young kids have. So seeing that they can now play all the way through from under sixes all the way through to the women's NRLW. We're starting to see those young girls now, 15, 16, that have been playing all the way through coming in, and their skill, their knowledge of the game, everything is incredible. And so I think that's only going to continue to grow. As those girls come into the women's space, the game's going to continue to go through the roof. But I think the second part to it is I hate talking about it, but it's money. So now that there's a good amount of money in the game, it's not massive, but we're getting there. Girls can now take time off work to do extra sessions or recovery or those kind of things. And I think at the start, it might have been a minimum of $2,000. We're now at a minimum of 30. So to see that and how much that's helped the girls to take pressure off themselves in needing a job, to be able to pay for things, to be able to pay to live, to be able to pay to have a roof over your head, that's seen a massive development and change in the girls too, I think.
Now, I'm not suggesting you'd want to change anything that you've been through, but occasionally? Do you sit back and say, geez, I wish I was starting now?
100%, 100%, all the time. I see what these girls get. I think like at Broncos at the moment, we nearly have more staff than we do players. That's how well looked after they are and how cared for they are. So of course I would love to be around this time, even going to school competitions. The thought of having a competition where I could just have a week off school and go play footy is like, that's a dream. So as much as I would love to be here now, I'm definitely still grateful for the path that I've taken. And hopefully now I can help some of the kids coming through to one, see how lucky they are, and two, help them develop and grow.
From an on-field perspective, what's been the greatest improvement in the women's game?
Just the athleticism and probably the knowledge of the game. I think a lot of girls were still definitely learning the game. When you talk to girls, some girls still don't quite understand the real nitty-gritty of footy, and I think that's come such a long way compared to what it used to be. Girls used to just think you just got to run hard and there was no real purpose to what you were doing, whereas now we're starting to get more purpose in what the girls are doing and where they're going and why they're getting there to set plays up for this or that. So it's pretty exciting to see the girls' game develop.
So what are you doing now coaching-wise?
Coaching-wise, I've been doing a bit of everything with everyone. So if I go to the bottom, so BMD in the women's, so for QRL, the BMD is the top women's competition in Queensland. So I just recently coached the North Devils in my first ever head coach role, which was awesome. I had the absolute time of my life. I had an epic team. We were very fortunate to make it to the grand final and went down to the Cutters, but just the season itself I absolutely loved. And then I'm also assistant coach with Scott Prince at the Brisbane Broncos, which I'm loving. We just on the weekend got a win to take us through now. We're guaranteed semi-finals, which is awesome. And then I also was with the Queensland side as the blue trainer, as an assistant coach as well, helping out the back five for Queensland this year. So that was an epic experience. And then I've just said yes again to the PNG Orchids at the end of the year for the Pacific Tour.
So do you see your future in the game as a coach? Can you see yourself making that progression from Norths through to an NRLW side to potentially even an NRL role?
Definitely, I would love to. That's the goal, is to become a head coach one day. Am I there yet? I'm not sure I'm quite there yet. I'm still learning a lot. I learn a lot head coaching Norths, that it's not so much about coaching when you become a head coach, it's about people management and getting a good staff behind you that you know can help you get the girls to where they need to be. So I definitely learnt that being involved in Norths, but that's where I want to go. That's definitely what I see myself doing. Initially, I thought maybe I could be like an Alfie Langer and just be that really good blue shirt and nail it and be the fun one, which I also don't mind the idea if that's me for the next few years. But I love sort of getting involved in so many different teams because you see so many different coaches and how they coach, and you get to kind of take the good bits and see the bad bits and then put it together into what you want to be. So I'm enjoying doing that at the moment. Who's
had the biggest influence on your career?
Wow, that's a big one because I've had multiple coaches that I know I've learnt so much from. Just Scotty Prince at the moment, if I was going to talk about him, his knowledge on the game, his attack, what he can see, his vision, even when he breaks down other teams, what he can see that they're doing and what they're trying to set up and how we would defend that. It's like just being in his mind would be epic because it's just so cool, some of the stuff he sees and how easily and simple he breaks it down. But then in saying that, Tani Norris being, both of them being ex-FOGs actually, Tani obviously was a massive pioneer in the women's game, and I've never met someone so passionate about the women's game and where it's going. So I've definitely learnt a lot from her as well. And another one is Ben Jeffries. So he's now currently down at the Knights, worked for, he head coached at PNG, and I was involved in that World Cup campaign just recently over in England. And I just learnt so much from him just in patience-wise, cutting up video and what you're looking for and what you're cutting up and why you're cutting it up and how it helps the girls. So yeah, they're probably three that have had a lot of influence on me.
What do you miss the most about playing?
I think Just that feeling of the team and the camaraderie, and when you lose together, when you win together, those highs. So I definitely miss that, being involved in those moments.
What do you rate as your greatest achievement in the game?
I'm going to say the 3 premierships with Brisbane. That was epic. To go 3 in a row, the first 3 NRLW Premierships, that was, to win that 3rd one and create history was insane. And to do that with all my best mates was epic. And
to do it as the game was growing too. So they're all different for a variety of reasons, as all premierships are, but you were doing it in a competition that year on year was growing dramatically as well. So the difference between Premiership 1 and Premiership 3 in terms of eyeballs on the game and development of the game are so dramatically different, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And the game and the girls coming through kept changing. We were just doing yearly contracts, so girls were chopping and changing teams constantly. There was so much movement happening. We've only just recently brought in where the girls can start signing for multi-year deals. So back then everyone was chopping and changing everywhere. So I think there was maybe about 4 or 5 of us that had been there from the start. So to be able to do that with those girls was pretty cool.
So as we sit here today, Meg, let's go back to maybe the girl at Sanford, maybe the young woman in the Northern Territory, to think that you've represented your country, you've played Origin, you've won premierships. Can you believe what you've achieved in such a short space of time?
Oh, just even hearing you say that's crazy to think that. I remember I would have only been maybe 12, and I sat at a table with Mum and Dad and said, one day I'll play for Australia and I'll pay your mortgage off, because I remember having money issues. I've still not quite paid their mortgage off. Haven't put anything towards it actually. But I played for Australia, and that's special. And I'll never forget them being up in the stands, witnessing that first ever moment. And to think about what I was able to achieve in the game in such a short period of time is crazy and so special, and where it's taken me on my life journey now, and what the game's given me, I'll be forever grateful for.
Well, Meg Ward, thanks for your time. Congratulations on a wonderful career.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOGS Queenslander podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.